Hello, tiny painters. Let's relax and paint. My name is Hollie Brubaker, and I will be showing you some of my tiny art that I love to make. So come along. I love to find some crystals or gemstones to set around and really set the mood. So right now I have my tiny painting palette with a tiny little piece of paper, watercolor paper, that we're going to paint on. And I got this wonderful, adorable little paint palette a little while ago, and ever since I started painting with it, I'm obsessed. So I thought I would share my obsession with you. And I feel like it's a really important distinction when I'm making my tiny art and my calm art to really set the mood, light a candle, put on some music, and just zone out or zen out. And that way, no matter what we make, it's just a creation of imagination and joy and a calm mindset. Today I've chosen some tiger's eye stone and some other fun gemstones like obsidian. I love a good sharp glassy kind of stone. And I've got some orange stones, and I love the warmth of a fireplace. So I thought tonight we could start with making a sunset, a very warm sunset. So I'm going to put some water in some orange and yellow, and then a little bit of red as well. Then I'm going to give myself some water here. Adjusting the second angle here. And we're going to start by dropping in some water, just water, on the palette at the top of the little tiny painting. Just a little there. Okay, so it's all just plain water because what we're going to do is wet on wet technique. So I get the paper wet first before I drop in some of the wet paint. Get a little bit of the orange on my brush, and then we just drop it in and see how it kind of bleeds out into the water that we set down. Then I'm just going to blend it a little bit, kind of leaving it a little spotty. I'm not like brushing it. I'm just going to leave it a little spotty because I want to kind of have some almost like shadows of the sky a little bit. I'm going to drop in a little bit of red in a few spots as well, so that we can have, you know, that bright kind of sunset where all the colors just get really vivid. And this is just a relaxing kind of painting for me because I don't have to plan it out ahead of time really. I have a little bit of an idea in my head, but for the most part, it's about me getting a chance to just focus on something really minute, focus on something that doesn't concern the outside world very much, and it lets me imagine and play. And that's what's really important when you need to kind of relax a little or get outside of some of the stressful things in your life. So, all right, I'm just tapping some paper towel on the middle just a little to lighten it up so we can have kind of the sort of brightness that you get when you're when the sun goes down and it's brighter in one spot and then darker in the others. It's really starting to come together. It's nice. And then we'll start adding some yellow down here. And now that's wet on dry. So I should have probably got that a little bit wet, but we don't need it to bleed too much because we're gonna start blending this down and then adding back in. Because we're making kind of a little bit of a landscape sort of vibe that I'm gonna do here, which is kind of, you want it to be a little darker, more saturated, and then get lighter underneath. So I'm kind of getting that and drop it down. With such a teeny tiny brush, it can get a little tricky, especially with like blending and trying to make things look a little smoother than, you know, when you have a nice big brush and a big water brush. But we generally have that as our first layer of kind of a hill. And I actually want to add a couple of little trees here. We'll see if it's dry enough yet to, yeah, I think that could work. I can just have okay, it's still too bright over top of the brightness, so maybe over here we could put a tree where it's in front of the lightness. That's a lot easier to see. Just a little tree on the horizon a bit. And we can add in a little bit of red to that. Now it's still a little wet there, so we'll just actually let that dry and we'll try again in a few minutes. Because just like Bob Ross says, there's no mistakes, just happy accidents. Just happy accidents. Blend that out. So we'll continue with this yellow instead here. Just double checking that we're good. Get some yellow on the teeny tiny brush, and we're gonna make another line. So just make kind of like a little mountain there. And then we take the water and then just blend this down, and see how it's a little darker than the last one. We're just gonna continue to get a little darker and a little darker each time. But just close to the line up there, and it kind of pull up the other color underneath. So far, so good. It's starting to shape up and look like a nice little kind of hilly scenery. I'm gonna mix a little bit of the orange and the yellow together. At this point, I think we should maybe add a little brown as well. Let the browns start to get, to help darken up the yellow just a little without doing too much to to mute. So it's an even more mustardy, like spicy mustard level, and then this one will make maybe a mountain kind of going this way down. So it's kind of even more, there we go. And that is actually looking really good for, I think I'm gonna actually, there we go. Have it more like that. And then we just need a bunch of water. Again, just blend it down. And take my paper towel And blend just a little bit, just kind of, while it's still wet, let it kind of naturally do the way it wants to bleed, but also kind of help it come together. And now seeing a little more of this here, I'm going to take some of the like a reddish orange back here where the sun is just starting to light up some of the trees. It's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this so far. I don't think we're gonna have to do too much more when it comes to the sky, other than maybe adding a little bit of orange on these hillsides to kind of accentuate the sunset color a bit. Just a little bit more. Or we can just mess it up and turn it into something different. But no, that's fine. I probably should have done that when it was still kind of like wetter. It works. It works. It's totally fine. All right. And I kind of want to go back in and make this part lighter. So I'm actually just going to add a little bit of water so it can kind of pull up the paint that was there just a little bit. It's a little lighter. We can work with that. It's fine. Okay, and we're just gonna smudge, 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 smudge. I would like to do one of my favorite things to paint is a cat. And not just any kind of cat, but usually my favorite thing to do is like the shape of a cat in a silhouette. So since we already have sort of this neat little sunset that we've painted, we need a cat sitting in front of the sunset. Some black here. And I think I'll start with making the cat silhouette here. So I start with just the just kind of a U shape to get an idea for where their head is going to be with the little ears pointing, and then a little shape of the body just to get us started. And then do we want him sitting on something? I think maybe it could be a tree trunk, or let's do a fence. I think a fence would be nice. So we're just gonna make a line here for where a fence is. And we'll just make it one of these fences that has multiple stripes. Okay. Because we're just making it up. We're just figuring it out as we go. And it's all perfectly fine. And I'm just making the outline here first so I can get an idea of, okay, that's cute. All right. And then, of course, his tail will go over top of that. But let's fill him in first and then kind of get a sense of where we want to put his tail. And then we can also, like, I start small and skinny like this until I have an idea of kind of what I want him to be doing. So let's get the head a little bigger first. There we go. That's a little closer to having his little boop, 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 little ears. Okay. And then since he's kind of on this side, I think I'd like his tail to come over here. But since he's actually sitting, maybe we have his tail come down. So I need a thick, let's see, we're going to do thickness from here over. Okay, that's not too bad. We're onto something. Okay. And then get him a little almost kind of sitting around the edge of the fence because he's sitting on part of it. Yeah, it looks like he's kind of got his little arms around it there. And then I will just make the edge a little more like his little bum is kind of being smushed over here on this side a bit. And yeah, and then let's go back to his head and just make the ears a little more defined. It's so tricky with, you know, this brush. I usually put my I'll leave my wrist straight flat on the surface so that I'm really only working with this part of my hand just to get it perfectly stable. Oh man. Okay. I think that could work. Do you have a favorite place where you like to look at the sunset? When I leave a grocery store, because it's always usually sometime after work, it's always around the time like when the sun is setting, and so I'm like busy in the hustle and the bustle of, you know, running errands, and then you step out into the parking lot, just an ugly regular parking lot, and then you look up and the sky is just gorgeous. I love when it's like cotton candy, like pink and blue, and it's so funny because I always want to be like, I want to take a picture of that, it's so beautiful, and then I look around and I'm like, but it's not. Like it would be like power lines and buildings, and so that's what it kind of reminds me of, like going and seeing something beautiful, but then also, you know, the normalcy of like, okay, there's a cat sitting on a fence, that's just kind of a normal thing, but then when you paint it and it becomes art, it's very beautiful. So here is the little frame that I put it on to kind of show you what it looks like in its context a little bit. Tiny, 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 tiny art. I love it. So as we're settling our minds and tuning out the world for just a little bit, I'd love to share some inspiration on your artistic journey, even if you're not an artist and you just like to relax and watch other people do their art. I would love to leave you with this quote from this book, The Art of Creating by Joseph Wynn. And of course, I use my tiny paintings as bookmarks sometimes, so there's a tiny painting that I was using as a bookmark because I thought this was a really appropriate quote to leave you with. And it says, all emotions can be used for creation. The best emotion for creation is the one you're feeling right now. Thank you so much for being here with me and watching my painting and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for being here. Be sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel here, and also anything can be a tiny painting, so go in the comments and put your suggestions for what I should paint next.